Oh, shut up. Carry on.
I'll carry on with the North Node in the Aquarius in the house of service or work. Being an Aquarius, its ruler, Uranus, is at 13 Cancer. So it suggests that the particular type of healing work, as you've already said, is the emotional reintegration type of healing work. But the particular way that that's done, and again, I can't get away from that exact conjunction with the planet Sirius, is bringing back an emotional reintegration through is that the power of nature, or the nature of the soul, which has the capacity to for your consciousness to merge with animal or plant forms, or with other people, simply with other people, and create the space, or allow the space for the emotion to actually be released or reintegrated. Also the moon being exactly trying that North Node from the 10th house of work. I would say that supports that kind of work, emotional healing work.
You're saying that my chart reflects that I would be good at doing emotional healing work?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You know, this again is after doing your own emotional healing,
Yeah.
or along with it.
You have a lot of past life hidden pain about nurturing or creativity. Pluto conjuncted South Node near the rule of the sun in 11. Trauma around that in Cancer.
Trauma around what?
Nurturing her creativity.
Well, yeah, but then you have to understand the causative factor if that's the case. Obvious, it should be obvious in this chart that she's been attracting, because look, this thing is ruled by Uranus, yeah, or by Sun. We find this thing here standing here, yeah, and what's the relationship to this, and what's the relationship of this coming down here? In terms of past life trauma, that it was a causative factor for creating a high degree of emotional fracturing within her own body, thus her own unresolved trauma at this level. And of course, this is why she has an interest in working with folks with trauma. What is the cause here? This means a lifetime of attracting men who have had a displaced anger at the feminine principle. Meaning men who have, in psychological terms, carried what a psychologist calls the castration complex, where a woman snips off you know what, through displaced rage. Do you see the symbol? And because then of this attracting men who have been obviously psychologically, emotionally dysfunctional, and lots of unresolved rage around the feminine principle, manifesting as a psychologist calls castration complex, and this will then simultaneously create a man who in the beginning of a relationship with a woman will appear one way, meaning giving, nurturing, I'll give you what you want and the rest of it, the famous asshole. And as soon as that man knows he has secured her, the key being secured, and oh yeah, we're now married or whatever, then the opposite, the actual agenda, the actual reality, and progressive abuse, progressive projection of his own unresolved, distorted emotions onto her. And imagine the nature of such projections coming through Mars and Scorpio, which has had the effect, given the fact that her soul is hypersensitive. On an anatomical level, you have you couldn't have a more dominant pineal function in any chart when you see these symbols. So in the emotional body, this creates hypersensitivity, which on an anatomical physiologic basis is the causative factor for emotional empathy. But relative to her own soul structure, hypersensitive, what is the cumulative effect of these kinds of projections? Is this not going to progressively shatter her own soul? You know, once any of us tends to hear something long enough, we're going to tend to believe it. And if I'm told I'm a piece of shit long enough, well, guess what? I make myself a shit. Do you understand what I'm getting at? So a lot of this healing is unraveling messages which have been projected onto her. Do you see the symbols? To unravel, undo, remove, purge.
Even something she said herself before, I just laughed at her.
End of analysis. That's what it means. Oh, God. Okay. And so we can clearly see this thing. Someone carry on.
The compensation, do you consider the Jupiter being a T-squared to the nose?
I.
Yeah. And that's the compensation,
Mm-hmm.
according to religious and social kind of expectations, how a woman should be and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Because of its heavy cancer.
Well, and we notice it's also ruled by what planet? Venus.
Yes.
And one of the underlying motives in past life that is not, keeping in mind this opposition motives, is the unnecessary comparison, Venus, which has then reinforced the ridiculous sense of inferiority which does not stand there other than in our own mind. But it nonetheless stands there and has then been used as rationalizations, I'm not ready. So what do we change? We have to change an element of our vocabulary, third, ninth, and we change the words from I can't to I can. Simple adjustment. They make this her essentially her affirmation and or motto. That she reinforces driving the car. I can, I can. Washing the dish. I can, I can. And pretty soon, guess what? Brain's thinking I can. Basic adjustments. So, okay, let's carry on. You weren't supposed to know that. I put him in here so he could hear. Actually, listen, I put him there. Okay. Alrighty.
Jeffrey, what about the nature? Do you consider Uranus being T-squared to the nose? Uranus?
Yes.
Being
Yeah, of
T-squared to the
course.
nose?
And that's, of course, and what you're seeing here is bringing forwards into the current life unresolved dynamics with individuals in past life, in which something is not finished or resolved. The intent is to liberate from that. This is one of the reasons that he's not been able to have even the possibility of just one partner, because there has been an intention to repeat past life relationship, the diverse nature, in order to liberate and complete. But now that this Pluto transit's formed its final square here, that's released. It's released this life within the last year or so. Well, listen, I've got to take off in a few minutes, so what I want to do is first let you know that when you need to get in touch with me, when you have questions or whatever on the material, you can either access my email, which is in lowercase, the blue, at pipeline.com. And recently I've added a message board to the website, which people, all my students are encouraged to access, ask whatever questions about the material you have there, or anything related to astrology. As long as you're my student, I'll answer it. And so right now we have an ongoing collection of all questions and answers. And so you can also refer to it as your own library, so to speak. And it's great for me because I don't have to answer the same question over and over. And David got me hip to this. And Pisces Moon goes, okay, finally, you know. So anyway, that's there.
Basis for another book, too.
It's based on another book. So you can access that, and I will usually respond to the questions within 3 to 4 days. And email I tend to respond to fairly immediately. That's the quickest way to get my attention. Not even the phone is faster. Anyway, I've got to get going, and Uli and Mark will take... cool. I'm really enjoying it. See you again in July. So.
Were wounds. So you might release this one event on day X where this happened, and maybe a week later when you will find and liberate and emotionally fine, boom, the other thing comes. That's the moment when you do it again.
Oh, very good.
Yeah?
Very good.
So what I very often do is I do it that I then go in the bathtub. That's my thing. And either with Epsom salt or sea salt or apple vinegar. Yeah? And I first prepare my emotional body / aura to, release, and then I go in front of my fireplace, naked. And I sit there, and then I make my happy prayer, close the eyes, because if you have a real fire in front of you, it's even easier to imagine fire, because the physical body senses it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You feel fire, so it's much easier to go in the imagination. Yeah? And then to release it.
Yeah,
That's what I do.
Yeah, I was just sitting outside and I was trying it, just for, but and the sun was coming down, and I could feel it right here, and it was really easy. And then, and like all of this stuff came up, but I just let it.
Yeah.
I just keep letting it come up, and even like the same image would come up after, you know what I mean? It kept like rotating. Yeah.
And the clue is indeed, number one, the intention to be willing to let it go.
Yeah. So the vested interest in maintaining it is the little saboteur.
We've been all in a relationship where on the one hand we know that we need to step out.
Right.
But there's a deep hope. Yeah? Or there is a dynamic to not let go because there's the hope that it would become better in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
And at a certain point when you recognize this dynamic, you usually deal then with anger.
I'll show them.
Or identify with being the victim of this thing, and that becomes part of the identity of it.
But if you become the victim, then you're not taking the responsibility for what is going on. No? But when the anger kicks in, this is the emotional will to break free. Anger correlates with Mars, Aries. When at a certain point, fuck it, it's still coming up. I wanted to go to the beach and have it again in my system, and I feel like angry, aggravated, want to come back, don't understand why, victimized, all this shit. Yeah? And when this anger comes up, then use the anger like jumping on a wild horse and say, okay, now ride it. And then with this technique, then it works very good. That's what I do. I can talk about.
You're doing really well with the words right now. Would you speak about Mars in Cancer with the fire and the water elements, smooshing out or dousing out what happens with anger when you have Mars in Cancer?
It's very emotional, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what? Your words are really hitting a chord, and I'd like you to talk about it.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, anger. Everyone within us has anger. How it comes up is differently. Yeah? Me with Mars in Capricorn, I tend to suppress my anger. I pretend as if I'm not angry. Yeah? Which then makes me become like anal. Not sound, but very like cornered. You know what I mean? Like kind of thing. Yeah, no, cigarettes have some else. In my case, some else in it. But it's not this kind of sound thing. Yeah? A Mars in Cancer can become an anger that becomes its own dynamic via a yeah? You want just like baby.
Oh yeah,
Cancer. Yeah? And you might feel it in the stomach area, and probably a heat around the medulla. Yeah? Or like in the head. You know what I mean? But to me, like a Mars in Cancer, it has a good deal to embrace the emotional anger when it comes up. But its polarity is in Capricorn. To not feel baby-like victimized. You need then to be focused on the responsibility. Otherwise you don't get it. You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting there with my Mars in Capricorn and saying, yes, I take responsibility, yes, but I'm not emotionally embracing it. Yeah? When I really let myself sink in that I allowed someone to abuse me on a constant level, then the emotions are there. This is responsibility. You know what I mean? And a Mars in Cancer might feel the other way. Feels the pain in the emotional body. But it's so hard to take the responsibility because being overwhelmed by it, you know what I mean?
Which is where the Agni really would be of service because you do take the responsibility.
Yeah. But, of course I've got Mars and Capricorn. I think, like, my God, where's the problem for Mars? You know, it takes me like a long time, Capricorn, to finally embrace the feeling of woundedness. Yeah?
Well, the problem
To
with
them-
Mars and Cancer is that you do sound baby-like, and people don't take it, so it doesn't get.
We're not talking about people. People do not exist.
Okay.
We're talking about you and your inner world. The people are just, you know, the actors in your own movie theater. Yeah? We're dealing about inner world issues. Yeah? So the way how your anger is ignited comes from a very emotional female childhood anger. But a child, Cancer, has the natural need to be nurtured. Yeah? As an archetype, a child, a baby, does not have to take responsibility. Yeah? When it's baby. Yeah? In terms of baby, not in terms of evolutionary astrology. So the challenge is the polarity. You know, it's very easy for you to feel the anger, the aggravation. Yeah?
Yeah.
But it's happening in your 10th house, isn't it? Oh, see, here, what's the block?
Conjunct that.
Huh?
Conjunct that.
Then you have like both. Yeah? Really?
Yeah.
But, see, the thing is, anger can at a certain point really help to free oneself. Keep in mind that Mars is the old ruler of Scorpio. Huh? And this is when we start to confront ourselves with our desired structure. Yeah? Then it can become healing. To say, a part within me wanted to have this, you know, experience.
Absolutely.
And then to take the responsibility.
There you go.
And not like going, oh my God, you know, he
There you
talked
go.
it into me and all this shit. Got it?
Got it.
But somehow, a part within you is longing to be hurt.
Got it.
How about Mars releases the energy that was locked up, the anger, and then the polarity Capricorn reflects on the use of that energy in a responsible way.
In a constructive way. Sure.
So that what happens, I think, Barbara, with you is that you go one to the other. You repress your anger at one point, and then you like trick yourself and say, oh, I've got to feel my anger. I don't like integrate. And that would be
We have to accept the fact that
only because I know something.
that the 10th house and Capricorn or Saturn contact is a constant fear of not being conform with the mainstream. And if I'm not conform, appropriate, the British word for that, then if I live out my instinct anger in the moment when it comes, then others will judge me. You know? And therefore I start to judge myself. Yeah? I mustn't be angry now. Yeah? Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I have signatures of that all over the place.
Huh?
That's one of the themes.
That appropriate word is also like a catchword in psychology here.
Yeah, sure.
It's not appropriate emotion, it's not appropriate response.
And then it goes back to our judgment patterns. What is the basis of our judgment patterns? What belief structure is behind it? Yeah? You know what I mean? But the anger to me very often is the release trigger. Yeah? Yeah? At a certain point, okay, now it's enough. Yeah, I got an Aries rising with Mars and Capricorn. Yeah? I can hold it quite long, but at a certain point then, I go like... And in this moment, I need to, in the first place, Aries rising, Mars, Capricorn, to take responsible for my instinctive need, even though I have no concept. And maybe to reflect 10th house. What triggered out that anger? Yeah? And then to find a strategy to now integrate the anger after being responsible for that.
But just like sex has been distorted, so has anger.
Sure.
And we don't know how to express anger in a correct way, which would be using that energy to reflect back.
Yeah.
Take responsibility.
On the one time,
What we've done is abused other people.
anger to me has two flip sides. The one is a scorpionic anger, and the other is an Aries anger. The Aries anger is very much that you have an instinct, reaction / action / impulse, where you have the need, the immediate need to act out. Aries. Yeah? Like for instance, someone attacks me, boom, striking back. Yeah? Or something is totally undermining my natural need, or everyone's need, for freedom and But with Mars in Capricorn or 10th house, when we do have this need, the first inner response is, I can't do that now. Yeah?
Yeah, but that's combined with the first half Scorpio sun, which, you know, I mean...
Yeah, yeah. And the other anger, the scorpionic anger, is cooking up. It's intensifying on the emotional level. Yeah? And it can be used, from my point of view, in a healing form, to confront myself with my needs and desire structure. Yeah? But very often Mars or the scorpionic side of anger can very often be because of being emotionally so wounded, Scorpio, because of having invested so much energy into whatever I was, or whatever symbolized that I want to be with. At a certain point there could come the dynamic, because of being wounded, to go on a revenge trip. Yeah? That's the other side. Yeah. But there's a very pure and natural way of anger. Yeah? That we feel, for instance, via our adrenaline. The moment when you get a boost of energy that you need to run, because it happens with the physical body. Yeah? But now let's go in our society with a happy office, and your boss is pissing you off. You cannot run because the contract says, you have to wait till 5, then you may. Okay, that's suppressed anger. Yeah? And then all of a sudden, because you have to keep your temper in a certain way, a natural way of temper. Yeah? You then get home and it's still like somewhere, but you don't know where it is, and maybe your car breaks down. You take a cab driver, and the cab driver by mistake makes a wrong turn, and you snap at him. Yeah? Could be. But it's not so much about anger. This Omni technique is very much, when you feel the desire. Yeah? And we have to be careful, especially in this class, because here's a high degree of mental or air energy in this class. Which I love. I've got it too. Yeah? But it takes a certain degree of emotional intensity / desire to then go for it.
Yeah, it's like switching gears.
Yeah. But if someone accepts, either by objectifying the chart and seeing, yes, I do have masochistic patterns, meaning that my needs are inferior,
Right.
yeah? That I must not live what I inwardly feel that I shall do in every given moment, yeah? That I shall create an improper order of my life priorities, yeah? Where I always forget myself, with the underlying thing, in order to feel good, I need to be suffering first or after. Yeah?
Right.
Great to read and ingest books. If you start, yes, I do have these patterns. If you even are able to detect where in your life these patterns happen, yeah? Then the next thing, North Node, 6th house, in Aquarius, you need to then be able to discriminate and to objectify when, in what moments, you might undermine yourself. Yeah? Let's say you feel the inner impulse, desire, to do it, / Omni, as bathtub, candlelight, good music, prayer, in the bathtub, showering, cold washing, visualization, in front of the fireplace, sitting there naked, da-da-da-da-da-da, all these kind of things. Yeah? Or if in this moment when I feel it, that I go to the desk and work. Yeah? To then maybe do it when the actual impulse is not given. Then it's more like sleeping with someone you love in the moment when you have no sexual desire. I mean, when there's no sexual energy. You know what I mean? That was a bad example, but you know what I mean?
It's not as effective when you don't, if you do it, if you put it off, if you don't do it when you're feeling the feeling, you're saying to do it when the feeling is there.
When it's that?
And then it will seem a lot more effective than
Exactly.
trying to just go through the motion.
Yes, exactly. See, we all know that, for instance, there are some people where we feel the impulse to just give a hug.
Right.
A hug, not need a hug.
Right.
Yeah? Or even needing a hug. For masochists, even better, needing a hug. Okay? I need a hug. In this moment, any kind of rationalization gives us a reason why we can't do it right now. Yeah? And we wait until the feeling is not there anymore
Yeah.
to then do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But the hug will be,
Not as good.
no. Yeah. And,
Get it.
and I was so happy because I knew that I had to get, my ex-relationship out of the system. And at a certain point, I built up the emotional will. Building up the emotional will. Yeah? Not just doing it in a Gemini fashion. Yes, I've done it. Done.
Right,
Yeah?
right.
And I was hanging out with a friend and we chatted. In this moment, I felt from deep within, Uli, go home and start. Yeah? And of course, my Mars in Capricorn, oh my God, what shall the other one think? Da, 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 da. And I said, like, you know what? It sounds like funny. I feel the impulse, I need to be alone, I need to take a bathtub right now. Yeah, that's very honest, right? So, you know, I should not think for someone else. So went home, did the prayers and all that, perfect.
You did it on the impulse.
On the impulse.
Instead of putting it up, oh, I'll do that.
On Saturday at 3 o'clock,
Yeah.
after and so left my house.
Yeah.
You know, in that bathtub thing, I've done that before, like emotional clearing work in the bathtub. And I sit in the bathtub, and then when I unplug the thing, I visualize as the water's going out, it's pulling out any remnants of that energy. And so you actually end up laying in the bathtub with no water in there. You did the same thing? You can actually feel it sucking out of you.
Yeah, and you imagine that black, dirty water gets out of there. Yeah. And then what I usually afterwards do is take a cold shower.
Shower, yeah.
Yeah? And start like to wash it off, while loud saying, I wash everything off me that does not belong to my very essence and nature.
There you go.
Yeah? And imagine how black, kind of, dirty, not black, but dirty, kind of, things fall off.
Yeah, crusty.
Yeah, I go out into the jacuzzi we have, which is part of the swimming pool, but I like to be outside.
Yeah.
And outside, I close the thing off from the pool, and that's it. When I'm done, it cycles back into the pool. So it's like metaphoric for the great ocean.
But then you have to exchange the water.
Yeah.
Water, by its very essence, magnetic.
Yeah.
That's why we wash our hands with water and not with sand.
Right.
It takes things off, away. What I very often do is also having a white candle while I sit in the bathtub and a glass of water in front of it. Yeah, and visualizing that the whole shit goes into flame and then into this water and pour this water away. Don't touch it anymore. But, just be creative. Instead of, okay, I want to have that done. What feels good for me? And if as soon as you start to believe it, it works.
That was good. Little conversation. Thanks.
You're welcome.
One more comment. In the art classes that I've taken, what they say is to really listen to that instinct. And if you don't listen to the instinct, it goes away.
Yeah.
And as you listen to it, it grows and grows and grows. That is what really came.
See, to my point, it's very true what you're saying. To my point, it's even that you create a certain way of inner guilt by not following this impulse. Yeah? It's a different kind of guilt than intake guilt or whatever. Yeah? Yeah? Especially when we allow ourselves to which means that the divine is... I'm just waiting because it's also for Barbara. No, just take your time. When we start to acknowledge that the divine is inside of us, i.e. Moon and Sagittarius in the second house. Yeah. And when we start that these impulses are more or less like, the directed divine will to my individual being as a part of the whole. Yep. Does not mean that it's the perfect truth, but it's a part of the whole thing.
Right.
If I start to embrace and honor that impulse and follow it, I naturally will be in alignment. Yeah? And the result will be a feeling of peace and happiness, and joy, bliss. Yeah? Make sense?
Yeah,
If I don't, let's say this impulse comes through, and you go like, no, it doesn't work right now, I can't do it, da-da-da-da-da, undermining your own business. You create a constant feeling of lack, emptiness, and all that. Good morning.
You wanted to say something.
create the
need cotton if you keep it away from your shirt.
Well, I dressed like what I wanted to dress today, not like...
Where you had it just been right now was...
Well, I'm moving. Okay.
You know, you were just saying about not listening to your instincts and how that makes you feel. What?
Because sorry for interrupting. I just hit the instinct story. I want to go into the kitchen, get a glass of water, and a vitamin B pill, because I feel that the energy again is hitting into my nerve system. So no. I do it. Please, it's my impulse.
So I said this so that you'll...
Can I do it in this moment? You don't have to listen to me.
I'll speak what you know.
I'm going. I'm listening.
I'm a teacher now.
I was just going to say, I know children! I'll lay down while they talk to you while you go get it.
I was just going to say, I've done work, this special kind of chiropractic work called network chiropractic, and during this work, it's spinal clearing, but what's happening is emotions come up from this work, and I was noticing all the men that I felt like have abandoned me. And so I saw this boyfriend, that boyfriend, father, blah, blah, and I kept going backwards in time, and then I ended up at myself. And I saw how I abandoned myself by helping others, being this helper person, healer, whatever person that helps everybody else, but I never ended up helping myself. So it's a self-abandoning thing. So it's tied in with the masochistic thing. It's like when you don't take care of your needs and your, which seems like almost everyone fits into that category in the masochistic thing. Yeah. The self-abandoning.
Of course, because a sadist would not come to such a class. Think about it.
We're hanging out.
This is why when you start like counseling, of course, most cases you will see masochists crawling into your praxis. Yeah? The sadist itself feels as inferior as the masochist, or even more. But how he inwardly responds to that inner lack, guilt, whatever, is that in order, or he creates the dynamic that he gives himself the right, before someone can hurt me, I hurt first. That's the stupid thing, because as more innocent, the masochist, the most masochists are very innocent. Yeah? Incredibly innocent. As more the sadist who thinks he's great, yeah, as a superiority, yeah, to compensate the inner inferiority, yeah, and the masochist undermining his capacities, yeah. So the sadist very often gets just fucking angry when he looks into the masochist, yeah, yeah, and sees the potential. Mm-hmm. So very often, if a masochist is being together with sadist, as more as innocent. Some sadists have a great ability to provoke the masochist. That the masochist at a certain point would do something wrong. Yeah? Mm-hmm. That then the sadist can jump onto the masochist and judge him for that. Yeah? You know what I mean? So it's more as a masochist is aware to not do anything wrong. Yeah? And wrong, of course, is a tricky thing from a point of view of masochism. Because sometimes the right thing would be, you know what, asshole, I leave. Yeah? But the masochist would be guilty for taking care and embracing his need to be validated as a co-equal being. Yeah? That's another story. But even if the masochist says, oh, okay, whatever you do, I won't let myself provoke. If you do that with a sadist, this is like, do you know this kind of steam pots? Yeah? High cooking pots?
Pressure cooker.
Pressure cooker. This is like, closing the pressure cooker onto the sadist. Yeah? Because you don't play the game with him anymore. Yeah? And by that, he sees more and more how innocent you are and how fucked up he is. But because of his pattern, he will then jump on you. Yeah?
Even more.
And if you don't strike back in this moment, yeah, makes him even more angry. Yeah? And then we have abusive scenarios that start with verbal violence into physical.
Crazy.
Yeah?
Run quickly.
You better do.
Change your
Yeah? Yeah?
But it becomes so clear then what the dynamic is, because then it just plunges into it.
But it's a dance on the volcano.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing, Jeff stated that today within your chart, but it's a general statement, is that, hold on, I lost it. That very often at a certain point, when the masochist feels it's time to make the final warning, if this dynamic does not change, I will leave. Yeah? It's the phone?
No, it's fire station. They got it.
And in this moment, sadist very often responds, I promise to change. That's the typical word you will hear out of the sadist. Because now he sees that the masochist might be leaving. Exactly. So in order for him, he becomes all of a sudden totally understanding, embraces what you're putting in his face. You know, thanks for showing me, yes, you're so right, big cheers, whatever, but basically the big promise. Yeah? And even after the promise, even if the masochist is strong, okay, you have to show that you mean it. Yep, in the first promise, of course, the word will make the masochist happy. Yeah? But at a certain time you will see, okay, we heard these words before, no change, do it. Yeah? So then sadist starts to really change in action. But only until the masochist energetically starts to judge himself, how could I ever have thought to leave this sweet person?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Meaning, yeah? Got it? Yeah?
So they feel secure that they have the masochist back in place again.
Exactly. And this happens not when you act. You can still have your facade up. But when you inwardly go, sweet. Yeah? I'm sure it didn't mean it this way.
Right.
Yeah? He's changing now. All this shit. Yeah? When this energetically happens, yeah? Most sadists then are back into the old patterns. But 1 degree more intense. Yeah? Because they pissed off that you threatened them to leave them.
But Uli, what about that, the bond and the person owning our own sadomasochistic?
Our own sadomasochistic, yeah.
Well, I mean, isn't one just a flip side of,
Yes.
of
Yes.
the other? So
Sure.
what always works is for me, is to be able to own that part of myself, and then it stops on the other end.
Right.
And to access my own status.
Yes.
And then I'm very safe from the status out there.
Exactly.
But it took me a long time to get enough out of masochism to own the status. And then it's very empowering.
Yeah.
But it means owning that which I am projecting out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. But see, very often a masochist would not be able to do that in the first step. And, you know, let's say, you know, there is a sadomasochistic relationship going on. If you tell this what you tell the masochist, he will not be able to, because he's still in the enabling codependency of the sadomasochistic relationship. So you first have to help him to understand that the promises his boyfriend or whatever gives, yeah, will very often just be the new hook. Yeah? After a relationship break off, then this advice is very true. You know what I mean?
But as long as the partner's out there that you can project all that onto, you don't have to see it in your own.
I don't see it. In some cases, maybe yes, Bill. If it's already like to a degree of, you know, total distortion. You know what I mean?
Well, I just see how much victimization hooks. I mean, it just begs for a bully. It's just,
Yeah. Yes.
And I love kind of to use an example of a little old walking down a little grade with a couple of bags of groceries. And all by herself down the thing, and you're walking behind her. And she trips and falls. And the goddamn groceries go, the oranges roll down the gutter and the cans start rolling. You rush over. She goes, no, I'm fine. She goes, but let me help you. I can run after that. Leave me alone, I'm fine. I mean, you just want to kick her. Don't you? Because she's being such an asshole. Being such a victim.
And not, the inner dynamic is, I don't deserve to receive something.
Right. But that's the person, the victim you're talking about.
That's the masochist.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you can draw a big enough picture,
Yeah.
the person can get angry
Uh-huh.
at the little old lady for being so stupid.
Right. The little lady
That she won't let you help, and then you can kind of quicken that heart in the
That feeling
person.
of wanting to kick you over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then stay with that a little bit, and just owning that little bit of how easy that is to hook.
Absolutely. But in the inside of the little lady could be like in the evening that she thinks about it and that she becomes angry about herself that she had not been allowed to receive help.
Right. But I'm talking about the person, the masochist walking down the street, not owning their own sadistic part at all.
Yeah, true.
Just in order to get a little hook to show them how they have that.
The flip of it.
The flip.
Yes, absolutely. See, the way I very often describe it is in both patterns, sadistic and masochistic, the core vibration is a feeling of guilt and inferiority. Virgo, not good enough. Very often linked with a certain image of perfection, idealism. So it's rooted in this kind of Virgo archetype. And yes, very often it's lived out either then via the dynamic of anger, then it becomes a sadistic thing, or via anger toward it himself, meaning atonement, then it becomes masochistic. So the root where I target usually in readings, or myself, is to work on the issue of guilt. Do you know what I mean? And I'm talking just about, a guilt that was taught into me because I didn't fit into an expected image. Yeah? You know what I mean? Are we d'accord?
Yeah. I think about how much the Virgo stuff needs to be needed. Is that
Without acknowledging that.
right?
Yes.
And so here they have this ability to help, and nobody, and the woman doesn't want it. And it's such a helpless. You can just paint such a picture of this old woman.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're pissed at her. She's so stupid. She won't let you help. She doesn't want your help. And to be able to say, oh, okay, and walk on.
That's when you break the pattern.
Yeah.
It's her decision. When she's on the knees,
And walk past the oranges rolling down the
Yeah, sure. Yeah. This is what Jeff said with your chart today. This is so hard for a masochist when they just sense that the other one needs help. Yeah? That they start to help even if the other one doesn't want it. And that can also trigger out what Belle was saying, the anger in the other one.
No, the anger in the masochist for not being able to. Is that what you mean?
No. If I try to help someone who is only making word statements, but not really having a will to make a change / improvement, that triggers frustration in the masochist. But how a pure masochist will relate to that is, I did not do it good enough. And will invest more. Got it?
Maybe didn't say it in the right way.
Didn't do it in the right way. Yes, you're right. The reason why you dumped me tonight with my dinner and went to bars and fucked around was because you didn't say I love you on the phone. Been there? Yes. Okay. The other one who, yes, has a lack, masochist detects it, but masochist always sees the potential first in the other one. And very often does not want to see the reality of the other one. We have all great potential. But if the other one is not ready yet, maybe just is in the process to build up a will to make a change. Masochist crawls along, and says, oh sure, can help you. But the other one is not really willing to make a change. Then that will trigger out more and more anger in the one who needs help. Got it?
I guess I'm not a true masochist. That's why it took me so long.
Yeah. If someone tells me I want to stop drugs, Yeah? Drugs. Yeah? Drugs. And yes, da-da-da-da-da, yeah? And goes back and back. And you help. Yeah? We know about this dynamic, about enablership. Yeah? The one who then will do drugs, even though wanted to stop it, feels afterwards what? Guilty and inferior. Yes, no? Yeah? And there's happy masochists try to help. No? And the one who did it very often is then very angry about himself. That he did it. Yes? And puts very often then the guilt trip on the masochist, well, you didn't help me enough. The reason why I had to do the drug was because you were hanging out with your best girlfriend. Yeah? Been there? That's sadistic. In terms of the drug user, it's sadomasochistic. Because after the act of putting another one on a guilt trip, now he has a feeling of legitimate guilt, yeah, that he needs now to punish himself for, yeah, via, by instance, taking the drug. Yeah?
That's where the discernment has to come in, so you don't get hooked into that kind of a dynamic with somebody.
What has to hook in?
The discernment, you have to discern when that might be happening, when somebody's words don't match your intention.
Yes.
And not allow yourself to hook into it, because then you're right in that whole
scenario. Exactly.
Relationship, and it doesn't do either one of you good. It's just,
and at this moment, especially in your case, to then be able to discriminate, to see the reality, to objectify what is going on, and at a certain point, if necessary, from a point of view of your emotional self-esteem, to detach / to separate.
right.
Yeah? With a sometimes cruel attitude, if someone is still doing something that he literally wants to change, but still does it,
Right.
then he's not at the point yet to change it.
Right. And
Period.
my place is to just honor that and say, okay, so be it.
Yeah, give me a call when you're really ready.
Yeah, you live your life.
Yeah. I showed you the first 2 steps what you could do. Yeah. You don't accomplish them. You don't put interest in it. No effort. Nothing. Yeah. So these are the first 2 steps. Do them, and I move on. Yeah. That's hard for a masochist.
Yeah.
Because in this moment, the sadist or the other one will tell you, "No, I'm ready. I promise you." And they go to acupuncture, or they go to, whatever.
The leaves are really sharp there.
Oh, me too. Anyway.
They do this.
Yeah. But inwardly, they're not willing to change. And inwardly, and to a certain extent, they might hate you for having now told them, I only stay when you go to therapy. Yeah? You know what I mean? You will get it in return.
Oh, yeah. Or there's the one where they go out, like, for instance, my ex-husband, he was having an affair with a woman, and he was telling me that I wasn't intellectually stimulating enough for him. So it was like, instead of him, saying what our issue was, he was making me wrong for some bizarre thing.
And the statement from you, Lene, bring the statement of Jeffrey, and it's so true. A sadist needs to hurt before he can get hurt.
Right.
Before he could have jumped on you, or you could have jumped on him, saying, listen, you undermined our commitment, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. In order to prevent that, he attacks in a level, where you as a masochist will then feel like, oh, maybe that's true. Am I stupid? Da-da-da-da-da-da. And your whole energy is dismissed.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
There's
Completely deflated.
Yeah.
No energy to even attack.
Instead of him, this asshole, saying, you know what, I have no idea why, but I found her, attractive. Then he's in responsibility. Then we can have a Libra kind of listening statement, need kind of co-equal relationship.
Right.
Yeah? Because it might happen.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah?
Deal with the dress thing, but when it's like...
But if I jump into bed with someone, it's my responsibility. Yes, no? Yeah? And it's not because other one was.
Right. Yeah. That's an issue.
Yeah. And, and if a masochist brings that up, when the sadist gives you a reason, I did it because you did, or because you're not good enough, or whatever. Your breast is not big enough, or I always told you I don't like blue eyes. Things that you literally can't change.
Ridiculous.
This is the moment where you should ask yourself, why am I with this person?
In this county, Uli, there's a huge unit going with social services for domestic abuse, and this is the whole dynamic of domestic abuse.
Absolutely.
And it is epidemic.
Yes.
It is incredible.
It is epidemic.
Sadomasochism, and I don't think it's ever been identified with this dynamic.
No.
It's never been identified. They talk about abuse and everything, but it's really incredible.
Yeah.
Do they call it sadomasochism?
No.
No, they don't identify it as that.
See, that is the funny thing. If you observe the last years watching TV, how many films were made where costumes associated with sadomasochistic scenery / sex became popular. Yep. But since then, this word sadomasochism is more linked to boots, leather, or whatever. Yeah. To me, the more cruel sadomasochism is happening in most marriages, families, relationships, and all that. Yeah. If they would at least playfully use a whip, then I'm fine with that. If both are fine with that, if the core respect is given, but in those dynamics it isn't.
It's all underground, so it's not even identified or understood as what it is. At least the ones acting it out are aware of what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's displaced. It's like attacking a taxi cab driver.
Yeah.
Stuff built up from the day and goes home and gets down. Displaced onto the main.
And the thing is, if you start to confront someone with it, I had a case in Munich after my San Francisco experience in my relationship. This woman had three kids, and she was literally together with someone who was even putting evil spells on her. I mean, it went to a degree that he used psychic abilities for things. And we had a very, very serious talk in the counseling we had. It was like an inner earthquake for her. Yeah? And she asked for help, and we created a whole security net to get her out of the situation, with wrong passport, with getting the children somewhere and all that. At night to have her move out just for her kids to survive. Because the next step, we could, one of these evening classes, we can make her do her chart and his chart. The next step would have been that he would have kidnapped the kids, or even killed one.
Oh my God.
And put her on the guilt trip.
Yes.
Yeah?
The really sad part...
The guy was hunting me in Germany.
No.
Sure.
From here?
From here? No, it was in Germany.
Oh, the guy was...
Yes. Pardon me? Yeah, of course. His anger was so deeply triggered out.
Because you were coming between him and his relationship?
Now it was all of a sudden my responsibility that she left. I said, listen, sir, if someone leaves, and if someone is older than 18 years old, we consider him as mature and capable of their own actions. Well, but this is what you don't understand. She's not capable of these actions. Yeah, tough stuff. Okay? She had her own praxis. She was successful in everything. He made her to give that up, to be just for him and all that. Totally pulling down. I mean, pure evil energy. Yeah? And all that. And I said, well, see, if your wife decides to leave, maybe after reading with me, I would suggest, before the reading with me, some other events must have happened. My readings are not that good that someone just leaves. Yeah? Has there been any coincidence or, things between you and her, let's say in the last 1 or 2 years, that we would call arguments or fights? Yes, of course. I said, well, then maybe your wife decided not to be with someone anymore who does it. Well, I have to find her because she's incapable to raise her kids. So I said, listen, you're not even the father. You're her. Well, I have to involve police and all that. And I said, do it. But I warn you, because I know the law, you will not get the right. Not at all. It's her kids. But maybe, because he said, yeah, I'm a psychotherapist, and I said, well, wonderful. Then let's go from this point.
He was a psychotherapist?
Sure.
Oh, that's... Whoa.
Sure, they're the worst. Anyway. Dealing with Jeff Green material gets you into some interesting scenarios.
He just had ask you one thing though? It's so impossible to reason with someone like that, isn't it? I mean, were you, if that, or is it wasting your breath even having a conversation?
Thanks God that I've been in a relationship where I had like the same kind of men as my boyfriend. So I knew the whole pattern, how it worked.
Right.
And I knew how to, on the one hand, calm him down, and to slightly put him into responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah? And I said, like, listen, if you really want your wife back, don't you think it's the best time for you to reflect about what you have done? And if you really want her back, if you really want to love her, don't you think it's time that you work on your issues, and instead of using your anger of being abandoned and betrayed, to now hunt her, to find her, do you think she will stay happily? The only chance for you to have her back is that you make a damn change. And if you start today, she might be back in a year. Yeah.
You did?
Well, after he did all this shit onto me. Just went like, you know, how Asians do, like, when someone attacks you, go back and use the energy and just smoothly give it back. So, yeah, he left her alone since then.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Well, the thing that pissed me off about her, she left her alone. That at a certain while after 6 weeks, that she felt she's out of the torture chamber, out of the state of alert. She started to miss him.
Yeah.
We know that, don't we?
That is one of the most dangerous.
That is the worst.
So that's what happened.
No.
See, I got pissed at myself for missing the asshole.
Sure.
You know, but I did experience that feeling, and then I would just get so angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the hell? How could I possibly miss?
Missing the idealism and dealing with the potential. Yeah? The potential that you see in the other person.
But isn't it a projection of your own?
Need of your inner child to be held and healed. Sure. Yeah? If someone has this helper syndrome and all that, and it takes quite a while to make someone aware about it.
Yeah, awareness is really...
Yeah? And then you have to be careful, as me as the counselor in this Munich story, that I call her up. I mean, this is not my deal that I call a client up, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And say, like, listen, where you're standing right now is a very, very critical point. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And you better reflect and reflect and reflect if you really want that. Huh? I mean, this is me interfering. Yeah? Which can become at a certain point, you know, that now I become the bad one. Yeah. And she crawls back to him, and they said it, and then we, you know.
So what happened?
Huh?
What happened?
The woman that organizes me in Munich for my workshops, she is a great woman, and she's also a lawyer. And when she did her doctorate degree she's a lawyer and psychotherapist, and a doctorate degree in psychology, she wrote it was published as a book, Mothers That Kill. So she mainly runs her office and her therapy practice about abusive dynamics. And she and I are very much like that we live in a total social denial about what is going on in family/relationships. Even in Germany, to the extent that if you would call police in those scenarios, as I had it in San Francisco, I mean, thanks God, American police is used to that. Not thanks God, they're used to a point that they don't want to deal with it anymore because they're so fucking fed up. Yeah? Called domestic violence. Yeah? But in Germany, they wouldn't do it. Yeah? Because it's happening under these, you know, little hidden kind of dynamics. So she was working with her and all this, and so far it's like fine. You know, and every day for a masochist getting out of this thing is a step. Yeah. So the masochist, when detaching from this dynamic, can only live on a day-by-day level or even an hour-by-hour level.
You know, that sounds work for me. I just would like, whatever I really want to say to that person, I wouldn't think about it. I would just let it rip. And then my power would come out, because then I'd say, bom, 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 bom. And then because my power came out, I felt empowered, so I was less likely to back off of what I said. Yeah. But I had to totally not think about what I was going to say. I just said.
Well, anyway, that was something.
Should we take a break?
See, the interesting thing is just like if it comes down to violent dynamics, verbally abusive or even physically abusive, if the masochist, for whatever reason, at a certain point is not striking back. See, this is the tricky thing. If he would become physically defensive, police comes, sadist would be the first who says, look at the mark.
Yeah.
Yes?
Oh, yeah.
Been there. And so not to do anything. But that triggers the same effect that Bell about this old lady on the ground.
Yeah.
The sadist becomes so incredibly dangerous and angry that the only solution is to run. And then fight for your principles.
I think the real sad part is that relationships are beginning this way. You see them in high school, their first relationship, and they're defining love in these distorted ways.
Sure.
That he loves me, he's jealous.
Interrupting. It starts in the families.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah? Because that's the way with the parents.
Yeah. It starts before you incarnate.
Yeah. And then we go back to, right. Yeah. That's where it is. So, this whole thing that Jeffrey's teaching about what he calls patriarchy, natural law, matriarchy, is such a deep, essential archetype that it's amazing if you really start to sink it in your system.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Yeah?
When I read those words the first time in that book, it was like, well, I
Yeah.
totally related to it. It's like that is what I've been doing all
Yes.
my life.
Yes?
My family,
Yeah.
even well, the religion,
Everything.
Everything.
Uh-huh.
It was so clear to me. Every single, not romantic relationships, but even, jobs that I would take, and relationships with friends, and relationships with, to everything.
May I expose you for an example reason? Yeah? Did you hear what kind of relationships she was listing? Did you hear it?
Yes.
What relationship was not listed?
Herself.
Yeah, and I'm the real victimizer here.
Sure.
I'm the
Yeah.
one.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah?
But wouldn't it be
Thank you for pointing it out.
wouldn't that be a wonderful way to rebel? Is to rebel against
That should trigger out, now we're back to the question, that at this point, when I become aware of that, can trigger out anger. And go like, no more. Yeah? Me first. And I'm not talking about a stuck-up dickhead attitude.
Right.
Yeah? But just like when I feel that right now I need to take a bath and not like walk the doggy of my neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah? We got it.
Well, that's beautiful.
Somewhat bogus.
True. Okay.
Is that the Capricorn, right?
Like, where's that the priority list compared to...
I'm just thinking, I thought it was your
I need a cigarette before we finally go into that. Was that helpful yet? Yeah? This is the art of astrology. That's your astrology reading. And in order to understand dynamics of life itself, you can use astrology again to understand it. Not charts, but life itself with the archetypes that you've learned now. You know what I mean?
Walking down the street
We tried to do that
at lunch. Anything that was happening.
And another great deal is, the sun this weekend, or after this weekend, is going to go into Aries. Yeah? Why don't you give yourself a little homework, a 1-year homework, on observe the energy, yeah, relative to sun's movement through the zodiac. How's the light? How's the ocean? How the leaves? How the birds? All those kind of things. And relate that to the knowledge that you have from Jeffrey. Could be a way to internalize knowledge.
Great.
Wait, I need a break.
Yeah.
Can someone stop this camera? The energy of not being there. Yeah? And we wanted to do Sylvia's chart. Yeah? And all of a sudden we got to this Ogni technique, me then, we were big mouth talking about masochism, said it. Once again, she stayed full. Just as a little example, did you hear the statement of Bell for our break? That Oh, don't give me this look.
My innocent look.
That I asked if everyone's chart was done, but I'm surprised because I didn't think that we make it. And Belle said, well, we did it in an evening class, so we don't need to do mine, Sun in the 12th house.
Well, also I'm number 21.
Yeah.
So they won't get around to it.
Which is a...
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, I love Belle's chart. If you want to read it, you really freak. It's hard to read. Anyway, okay. So, do you want to tell us your background, imprint, these kind of things?
I was born in China,
Where in China?
Canton. It's
Okay.
like very close to Hong Kong.
But yet, like, China.
Yeah, China. No religion. I was born at a time where men and women are equal.
Equal?
Strong cultural environments, men and women are equal.
Okay.
All the women have to work. My family was middle class. Yeah, we don't believe in any religion, actually. Oh yeah, China.
Same gender what?
Same gender issues, meaning that, you know, I couldn't either because it's spelled wrong. But forgive me, I've got a Mercury in the South Node in Sagittarius, you know, so.
Like men and women are equal. Not like here.
Some would rebel with that statement. But nevertheless, you're right. So anyway, very often when I ask a client about, you know, what was your religious imprint, da 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 da, I already look into the chart. You know, you might see something. No? Her chart is maybe a bad example. But very often when it comes up, has there been a religious imprint while the client is responding? I have a look onto the 9th house cusp, the rule of the 9th house, eventually planet in the 9th house, and where's Jupiter? Yeah?
Actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, just what she says.
Yeah?
Venus and Leo, and then Jupiter in the first in Virgo.
Yeah.
That's really just what you said. There's no religion. It was just what we believe, or there
No,
was us.
just us, just the people.
Yeah, Leo.
People in mundane astrology is Cancer. Mundane astrology, when we read charts of countries, yeah, what you can do, of course.
The ruler of the 9th house is also square the nose.
What is also interesting is, how do you call China? The official name of China in English? People's Republic.
Wow.
Okay. Ooh. No? People is Cancer. Yep. The very family of a society is the people, right? And republic is something that has a lot to do that the people itself is the power. Not like so much Capricornian, but it's people republic. I'm just looking onto the word, not onto the Chinese reality. Yeah? Yeah? Okay.
Well, just a quick note. Sewer system just bit the dust, so it's,
Don't pee anymore.
I didn't hold it.
Natural dude.
Natural, yeah.
It's forbidden in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's forbidden.
Yeah, you can-
You get a ticket. Or more. Sure. Oh my God. Have you ever had an American visitor and you go like, you know, hiking, what the Europeans love to do? They got to pee and you just go into the next tree? They freak. They can't even pee then.
Yeah, can't do it.
No, they can't do it.
I grew up in the woods, so they're all Germans
Yeah.
in Wisconsin, so you see, in the woods,
Oh, okay.
they get hit by cars.
As a punishment. Okay. The evolutionary state, do you have an idea? No?
I know I'm not consensus.
Oh, I know that too. Good. Then, if you agree, why doesn't the group develop essential questions how to figure it out? Meaning, with my knowledge about the stages, I can now create questions. Yeah?
So, from this reading, what are some of the questions you would have? Do you have any specific questions?
What's
or
my
what-
purpose in life? What's my...
What is my purpose in life? That's quite a question. Okay.
Okay.
So now you want to, that tells us what her...
Well, at least it gets us quite close. Me, usually, I don't ask that question if I need to figure out the evolutionary state. Because it could be that someone comes into the reading just because a big relationship just cracked. Sure. So in this moment, you open up, the whole closet of questions about the relationship, but you wanted to know something else. But, the question, the client thinks like, okay, he's ready now for me.
Right. Okay, so how about, do you believe in God?
Yeah. But not in the religion.
Okay, but...
So that's good.
Okay.
So we probably say, and we know her a little bit too, first stage of the spiritual.
Okay. But it could also be the individual. Mm-hmm. She wants to know her purpose in life. Yeah?
Yeah.
Her. And yes, I do believe in God. Could be still in the individual, I mean, even the consensus belief, but the statement, but not into the religious kind of God. So we still like dealing spiritual or individuated.
Do you feel alienated from most of society? Like, do you feel like outside? Do you feel like you want to stay outside most of the world?
No, I feel like I'm an outsider from a lot of my friends because I don't believe the God that they believe in.
Second stage individuated.
No.
No?
No.
Yet I don't feel like staying outside. I want to do something.
With second state individuated, she would totally be in a state of total rebellion against anything, society offers, even that class. Even a schedule to go into that class would make her go, not me. No?
Okay. So where am I?
Great questions.
Should you...
My mom would freak if she would know what I do for a living. Seeing that, she would just go totally virgolized. I love it.
We saw them on the couch.
Yeah. Like,
She's picking fleas out.
I was going to ask her, what does she define as a purpose in life?
Very good. That's a very, very good question. What do you define as a purpose in life? What is important to you in terms of very essential, issues?
Make a difference.
Make a difference for others.
First stage.
That's what? First state individual?
First stage spiritual.
Make a difference
For others.
for others.
Different.
Third stage.
I think she's got to put both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what I sense is that the emphasis is very much in the individuated.
Yeah.
But please correct me. But very much motivated and driven already by a very spiritual kind of quest or call. Yeah? Another question that I very often ask, but keep in mind if you ask that question, have an eye on the chart. And have an eye how old someone is. Yeah? But the typical question, what do you do for a living?
Computer program.
A computer programmer. So now, see the MC? It's Taurus. Yeah? I look for the Venus. That's in the 12th house. I don't get anything about computer programmer so far. I look for Saturn as the next archetype. There is no Saturn in this chart. Oh yeah, sorry. See again, in Aries in the 8th house, does not give me a kick of computer programmer. Now I dive a little bit deeper, because, I don't want to put the chart on her, but there must be a reason why she's a computer programmer. So now I look into 11th house Aquarius issues. Yes, of course, I find something. And I do find Mercury, 14 degrees Cancer, T squaring the nodes.
Okay.
Yeah? That means that Mercury is somehow important in that chart because it's square to the nodes. Yeah? And Mercury has something to do with logic. And 11th house has something to do with computers. Yeah? So I found it. I found, something is there, but because there's a Taurus midheaven with a Venus in Leo in the 12th house conjuncting the Sun in the 12th house. There's a Saturn, the way how we structure our life as older we get, in Aries in a water house again. Yeah? I just go like, okay, this can't be all. That can't be satisfying for her. I mean, just can't. You know what I mean? I have 1 point Taurus, 2 times Leo, fire, water, creativity, 12th house. I do have Saturn in Aries in the 8th house. Saturn by itself in the 8th house shows that the consciousness is structured not only for total independency, Aries, but it is a natural kind of archetype of, let's say, a therapist. Yeah? Or, something like that.
What about using that in terms of discovery and compression? If she wanted to use the software, the computer programming, like being a software tester or, something like that. She doesn't want to do that.
Problem solver.
Problem solver.
Yeah. But, just keep it in mind that what we see as what Sylvia stated in her profession right now is only a small part of what we would define via what I just showed in the steps as her professional goal, so to speak. Would you agree? It's a combination of evolutionary astrology and traditional astrology, 10th house, Saturn, and all that. But it works. Yeah?
You could make the Mercury in the 11th, you could make a detached analysis if you apply to the north node of, and this is where she's going, this is Aries.
Yeah.
She can make a detached analysis to help people restructure the system.
Yeah. Just hold, no, that's fine. But what I'm trying to do is I share a little bit my practice knowledge. That when a client like her comes in and I ask her, what do you do for a living, what's your purpose in life and all that, and she's a computer programmer, but I see a chart of a natural kind of someone who wants to make a change for people, what she stated before. Yeah? Yeah? What is very much this north node in Aries in the 8th house with a Mars in Cancer in 11th house. She wants to make a change for other people. Yeah? Also to somehow help herself. She has natural healing capacities. Yeah? She's very creative. She's very compassionate. All the things without saying big statements. Yeah? But she works right now as computer programming. Now I look like, okay, for working, there are 3 reasons to work. One is to survival, that's 2nd house. The other one is just work, which is 6th house. And the 10th house more or less like career. Yeah? I see Virgo on a 2nd house cusp. So either I could now respond, well, this job is not very satisfying, is it? Do you have the feeling that your complete potential is like challenged in that job?
Yes, actually.
It is? Do you feel satisfied with the intention within it?
Like why I'm staying there?
No, like the daily basis that do you have the feeling that it's what you really want?
I was happy for a while when I get to do what I want to do and when people listen to what I have to say. And then I got a boss who just like totally think I'm a total idiot. Nobody. And I was really upset. And then after that, I just like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't want to be under control of anybody.
May I just look into the chart for a second?
I don't want people to tell me. I know I could do it, but I don't want anybody to tell me I can't.
But she just had her first Saturn return.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's like brand new. Yeah? And she's coming out of the closet, so to speak. Yeah? And but to me, even if you say, yes, I like it a lot, what I think is there's much more that she will do. I mean, she's investing a whole week, that costs quite a lot of money to do this school, i.e. astrology, 11th house issues. Yeah? to deeply understand deeper dynamics and all that. Yeah?
Can I ask
So,
a question before we go any further? Because she's young and she just completed it, right? Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Okay, just about for your first Saturn return. And she's cussing? You know, she did her third state individual with...
Well, we're not sure yet.
Oh, I see. This is where we're still...
We're still in the process. I was just like, another question.
Oh, well, okay, maybe I can put it in the form of a question toward that.
Please.
As you move on in your life, if you are cussing, or if you're in the last stages of one, in one life, can you start tilting into the
Yes.
other one?
Yes.
That's what I felt been happening in my own life.
Yes.
That's what I felt
Possible. Yeah. Possible. But see, we still have like individuated state. We know it's not second individuated. So it's either first individuated, that she tries to break free from consensus, or that she's in the individuated, meaning like this kind of genius. You know, I mean, not the, in what, yeah, moving towards the first spiritual. Yeah, the meaning the third individuated. That means that she does more and more as older she becomes, is doing what she inwardly feels that she shall do, no matter what society thinks about it, because she's already serving a bigger or universal purpose. Yeah?
I want to find that work.
Right. A typical question in the individuated state very often is, what is my right work? That's a typical, typical. Yeah? But we have to also see, because she's very young, that could also be with age, so, Okay. So, would the class agree that third state individuated with a very strong orientation towards mental state? Good, okay. So we got it all straight. Now we can read the chart.
Well, she has her T-square, as you said, with her Mercury and Cancer in the 11th. T-squaring the Aries and Libra axis node. And the resolution node is the North Node in Aries in the 8th house. Now, what else?
Okay, so, and then Pluto's conjuncting Uranus, and not really Jupiter, but it's there.
Not really what?
Not really Jupiter, by degrees. But yet Jupiter is running into Pluto. Yeah? So in terms of phases, that's a balsamic phase.
What's your, do you have any siblings?
Yeah.
Or were you separated from them at all? No. Are you still in a relationship with them at all?
Yeah. Not very close.
Are they just different?
Very different.
Different values and stuff?
The whole world is different.
Her inner, second house, her inner relationship to her,
Self?
Can you say to herself?
English is your first language, not mine.
I'm going to get you for that.
Revenge.
I just realized I might be misreading it because it's Libra. Does that have to be two others, or can it be her inner relationship to her? Do you see that?
It's both.
Okay, her inner relationship.
For instance, yeah, okay.
Her inner relationship to herself, self-appears a lot of times via others. With others, the relationship with others make me feel self-secure, and and the way with the Mercury, I'm being very articulate. The with Mercury T-squaring the nodes, you kind of critical detachment to no. Forget it. I knew what I wanted to say, and I totally. I just.
Okay. Why don't we before we jump into analyzing? Why don't we make a little brainstorming? No. We find the nodal axis in Aries and Libra activated. Both nodes activated. Aries reminds me not only of Mars but also of the first house. And we see 3 planets in the first house. Yeah? We see a very important aspect, Pluto conjuncting Uranus, in a new phase, meaning Uranus separating from Pluto. That's very much a new cycle is beginning. Yeah? A new cycle has very much to do, again, with archetype Aries or first house. Uranus itself has something to do with 11th house or Aquarius.
Rules of 7.
Rules of 7. So we have again the link. Just from that statement, I wanted to get to a different reasoning. But we see the emphasis of Aries and Libra. Which one is more emphasized in this scenario? Aries. The archetype Aries, first house, Mars, whatever, is more emphasized. Yeah? But also because Uranus is there, 7th house ruler, we have an emphasis in the 7th house, which is karmically or evolutionary so important, because Mercury in the 11th house makes T square. No? This is like the major archetypes, but there's one more archetype that we have to deal with. 2nd house, 8th house. Yeah? Just to, that we open our little drawers inside and know, okay, this is what we're dealing with. If it just look into the placement in sign and houses of the nodal axis, what could that mean? That there's Libra, Aries, 8th house, 2nd house.
Libra, 2nd house is having to live up to the expectations and needing to live up to the expectations of others.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to others.
Make it more simple. With what kind of houses are we dealing with?
Security issues. Security, sex. For inner security, South Node in Libra. The rulers in the 12th house. Yeah, I know. Dealing with personal security issues. Who's saying sex?
I am.
Barbara did.
Huh?
Barbara did. We see the axis, the nodes, on 2 houses that have something to do with trust, sexuality, inner relationship, intimate relationship. Yeah? And in that houses, we see 2 signs that have something to do with an emotional paradox between I need my independency, Aries, and I need to be needed. Okay? And that whole dynamic is T squared by a Mercury in Cancer in the 11th house. Yeah?
Mercury rules the 2nd house.
That's in addition. And Mercury makes a conjunction to Mars, the ruler of the in Aries. Yeah? Which is emphasizing again the Aries archetype. So Bobby?
I was just going to say this is all a relationship dynamic.
Only. Only. If you want to go into the core dynamics, it's in the first place about the relationship. Yeah?
And discovering her own needs.
Yes.
Which have been totally neglected on the one side. It's like 2nd house Libra, South Node, Venus in the 12th house. Somebody who's really unaware of their own needs, squaring Mercury, Cancer. So they take on the needs, the projections of others and say, I can be that, in order to draw somebody into their life so that they feel secure. And then the Aries in the 8th house is following the instincts of her own natural instincts in relationship.
Yeah, she said something early on about something when you said that men and women are equal in China.
Yeah.
And then you said women have to work.
Yeah, have to. I got that right away. Yeah.
Very good observant. Yeah? Yeah?
Have to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And you said it with such emphasis,
Mm-hmm.
too. It's like you do that in your own life. Women have to work.
I don't like that.
No, definitely.
But what about having that Virgo in the 2nd house, because she would always put other people's feelings before her own?
Yeah, but maybe we can stick just to the nodes, where we now have a little idea, and then we go to Pluto, 1st house Virgo, and then to the South Node. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's something that Uranus to liberate herself from doing the same pattern of always putting people's feelings before her own.
But the thing is,
Well, but Pluto, we start with Pluto in the first house again.
yeah, with Pluto in the first house, when it is right there, it's a paradox because she has lived many lives by herself and answering her own questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then probably,
How did she answer her own question?
she was attuned into God.
Absolutely.
And
Can you see that?
South Node and
Libra in the second house.
right.
What do I need? To wait, to silently listen until she gets the answer.
Right.
From within.
Yeah.
Yes? South ruler, South Node. Yeah?
Okay, I see. So actually, it was probably, there was probably switching for a while, like the extremes of being in relationships and then not being in relationships.
Exactly. That's the dynamic if you see the nodes in house 8. 2, even more emphasized Libra Aries, and that a planet in the 11th house is T-squaring it. Into a relationship, out of the relationship. In a relationship, just by myself, back forth.
So the
True.
South Node being in Libra, is that saying that she was most recently in relationship? I mean,
Most recently,
what's the statement that the Libra South Node is making?
only in the we can only answer that if we finally start to understand Pluto in Virgo in the first house, conjuncting Uranus.
See how it's a
Okay,
paradox.
so we need to go back.
So
It's a paradox.
it's both. It's switching.
In, out, in. Both.
So in terms of natural law, what you said would apply. The finding God through the inner. But based on being in Virgo, at some point she picked up patriarchal conditioning, which made her feel guilt, which may become the causal factor for initiating relationships. In the context of the second house, South Node, Leo, 12, the feeling that I need to sacrifice my own needs in those relationships, and then with the Mercury in Cancer 11 squaring the nodal axis, you can see that it's going to be projected from the early family and how that dynamic works between people.
Exactly. Exactly.
Don't get that.
Again,
What'd she say?
she didn't get it.
Go just go
get
a little slower. Actually, a lot of times when I'm not maybe I'm just burning out too, but it's not that I can't get it, but the person's talking too fast.
Okay. Through the patriarchal overlay, Pluto in Virgo is going to have a feeling of lack, need to atone. That will be the basis by which you initiate new relationships, which in the context of the South Node in Libra second,
Like to atone?
to atone, the need to atone.
Why would I want that?
You wouldn't want that. You were conditioned by it.
Oh, like, you mean I'll be happy by myself? Naturally.
And past lives.
Yeah, I'm talking.
She phrased the question. Why would I want that?
Yeah, why would
With a very Aryan kind of thing. Yeah? Yeah? But it's there. I mean, we don't want to make you a masochist, but we could see it. Maybe.
I guess I would ask, do you feel like you sacrifice your needs for others, and that you need to do that sometimes in order to get your own needs met?
I was brought up to sacrifice my own needs.
I'm saying.
And the soul picks childhood circumstances very much like, you know, the totality of previous life incarnation. Okay? Okay.
Should I go on?
Understand?
So based on that, the archetype, the Venus in Leo in the 12th, the Libra South Node in the second, that you sacrifice 12 times in order to please the way to get. And then you can see the Mercury Cancer 11 squaring the nodal axis. That's to family dynamic. And that'll so you have to repeat.
Okay, Mark, I missed how the family dynamic.
Answer.
Yeah, so you can even see like there was a lack of communication. It was hard for her to communicate her needs. She didn't feel entitled, Leo, Venus.
You may shift gear.
No, you know what happened? I feel that. I feel that, but sometimes, like, I would act out and get my needs met.
That's how the nodal axis operates. Trying to somehow hide it, to not do it. At a certain point, this area emphasis. Did you see her body language? Act out. That's very much 11th house, isn't it? Yeah, and she was raising her arms. Mercury. Got it?
Which creates a crisis in the family.
Hold on. Statement perfect. Yeah. But we have to go back to this Pluto. We start with Pluto. Pluto in the first house. What was the soul desire?
To initiate.
Initiate. First answered. Yeah. What sign do we find?
Virgo.
Yes.
Won't let her initiate.
Crisis.
Or
Via crisis. Yeah. Or let's phrase it this way: that the soul initially had the intention to I guess there's that in the first place wants to do that. That's a little stupid. But just needed to have the freedom, to be able to live out what any desire comes up, because being in a new cycle, and we're just having the freedom, first house, to walk the path, Virgo, step by step, a earth sign, a constant improvement, a constant becoming aware of, about its own inner nature. Therefore, the soul needed incredible independency in order to not only have the freedom to work, Virgo, according to any given subjective need, but to also Uranus, while doing that, speak like to make a self-experiment with myself, to while I follow my instincts, needs, desires, whatever, to a part of me objectifying, observing Uranus, if I do this, what is the reaction to the Virgo? Learn where I need to improve, in order to break free from, whatever, for instance, Jupiter, balsamic to Pluto, old belief patterns, or something like that. Therefore, she had chosen to, on the one hand, be always able to go into a relationship with her own needs. Therefore, she needed, once again, to isolate herself, Venus in the 12th, and to contemplate, so to speak, because the sun is there, to focus on what is my life purpose. And by that, naturally, by just embracing or accepting, Venus in Leo is quite strong, her needs as given, she just knew what the inner world wanted to do. On the same hand, she had also the need to initiate relationships, now emphasizing more on Libra, to somehow share this divine love that she has. Keep in mind, the Pluto polarity point is in the 7th house. But very often, when she got into relationships, things happened that made her maybe feel powerless. That she became subjected to any kind of idealism, how things should be. 12th house.
I don't go in relationships.
No, I'm still in past lives.
Oh, okay.
Just to, Very often, in relationships, she's still, I'm going now to the activated North Node, she wanted to, in relationship, bring things forward, to start new cycles, all that. To break free from social expectation and family patterns. But very often that had something in return. And now, what Mark was saying with the patriarchal overlayer, very often then, because of maybe gender issues, Saturn there, or this emphasis in Cancer, because a woman was not to, she very often attracted, she wanted to learn via self-experiment, attracted circumstances where she was sometimes made to hide her needs by the will of others. Got it? Fine? Okay. But, sorry, I was sweeping away again. Pluto, in the first house, she had the desire to independently work, on a self-improvement. Therefore, she needed independency and the permission to go her own individual path, Uranus. To learn via the principle of Aquarius, trial and error. Yeah? Okay? To also learn something about her physical body, let's say. Yeah? That's like the beautiful part of the whole thing. But there's some unresolved dynamics. And now, what did happen with these patriarchal overlayers? Or displaced emotions, as we phrased it? No? What's that? Do you still have your thought, or is it gone?
Me? Oh, no, not really. But I just, tying into the notes beautifully is that Uranus in there too, ruling the seventh house cusp, which is, what is trying to objectify the nature of the persona, is like trying to become more real with who I am instinctively first, how I project myself, how do I need to mold my, the way I am in a relationship.
Can I say something? May I? Because Sylvia and I were immediately drawn to each other on the first day and talked and had lunch together, and as it turned out, Sylvia was a sick child in her family. So Sylvia has a sister who's not been very nice, actually. And I think I see her in the chart. Neptune in the third house, the ruler of the third house, Venus, is hidden like a dark shadow in the 12th house. And there's, well, I think I lost the rest of it, but I was thinking sort of about the boss you were talking about, that was trying to sort of trying to sort of prevent you from doing what you want. Your sister has been trying to undermine you or somehow prevent you from getting your needs met. That in a way, the inconjunct between Saturn ruling your 6th house may somehow indicate a kind of a crisis which sort of brings this dynamic forward. I may be wrong.
Yeah,
but
I was sick for first 6 years of my life.
You were.
My mom had 2 miscarriages before me. And my sister resented me when I was 4. Because I was sick, I get all the attention I could understand. And we were in competition all our life. Like, I don't really in competition, but she just didn't like me. But at the age of 18 or so, I just realized I had to be the bigger sister. And I act like I'm the older sister. Everything was fine. But she still doesn't resolve her anger.
Good. So we're dealing with anger in the family. The comment was very good, and it's so true. But if I may go back to previous life incarnations, think about 8th house. An activated node in the 8th house, Saturn in the 8th house, Chiron in the 8th house, with Mars in the 11th house in Cancer, conjuncting the Mercury.
Could it be when she acted on her desires in relationship? Or maybe we covered this already.
No.
When she acts on her desires in relationship, it causes a crisis, as seen, or the trauma, when you go back to all those planets in Cancer. And the early family would have been like, she would have been perceived as being selfish, as being stubborn.
Yeah.
And so it would have created a problem in the family. Then she would have taken the same dynamics in a relationship with her partner, in which she would be going head to head with them, with lots of horns locking.
Horns locking?
Yeah. Bulls together. And then she would alternate it back to also, she'd flip back to the south node, and I could see like a life in a monastery, toning for her desires. You see that, Uli, with Venus in the 12th? Okay. And even in life, just in general, there's going to be flip-flop back in the, you get involved with the relationship, and it's like all of a sudden everything's going great, and then 2 months later, you're really comfortable, and say, well, this is what I want to do. And he's like, well, I don't want to do that, I want to do this. So when you bring up your desires in a relationship, finding people that vigorously oppose you. No?
But yeah, well, and it's kind of, it's almost that it's almost, she would have too the ability to lead others.
I find I'm the one who say what to do in the relationship, and then I get blamed for.
That's the dynamic.
Yeah.
That's the dynamic.
That's the thing.
She is in charge of how the relationship shall go. Because she, yes, has the ability to objectify. No doubt about it. But how does, a certain kind of man in our patriarchal overlayer, like it, if she tells him not only what to do and what they shall do, but also what's up with him. That's being together with a living X-ray machine. Go. How's the reaction of the persons then? She gave us the answer. She just gave the reading for her node in the 8th house in Aries. Yeah. I say what shall happen in relationship will, Aries, and then I are made to feel guilty for that or ashamed or something like that.
Pluto and Virgo.
So. Yep.
That's the total flip-flop.
That's the total flip-flop. Now that we have this dynamic, let's dive into it. Why is it? What's the causative factors that it's happening? It's still standing there. Don't go on other planets than just where we are at right now. What you want to do is take some other archetypes of the 8th house or Aries or Mars in Cancer, that we have not talked about.
Well, the Saturn in the 8th is authority. I mean, it's denying the self-expression.
I just had a picture. It was authority, governor, or royalty, or whatever, and where she probably was the woman and was had the power relationship, but it didn't get any recognition, or it didn't look like she was the one that was the power. It looked like the man was going or something.
Yeah, close. Let me ask you some questions. Could we see that whatever kind of relationships there happened with this Aries 8th house node and Mars in Cancer, that there has been incredible woundings of her emotional body caused by intimate relationships?
Absolutely.
Do we see dynamics that have to do with betrayal issues, abandonment, violation of trust, emotional wounding / attacks, verbal abuse, physical abuse? Yes? No?
All of that.
Yeah.
I can see too how she would want to avoid relationships together in this life, because it's like when you dive into that emotional world with another person in particular, when you start speaking out what it is you want, then you get attacked for it, and then there's that sense of you have to atone for it.
Well, that's one dynamic. That's one dynamic.
The Mars and Mercury in the 11th is to mentally and physically detach from the experience. Gone.
But it's, yeah.
You're watching the experience, but not just detached. With a detached Mars, would you know it? You wouldn't know that you were doing that, would you? With Mars in Cancer.
Very often not.
You were feeling it, but you're not, because it's in the 11th house, right? So what is the antidote for... Are you just...
What do you mean?
Sylvia,
she doesn't know she's being
would
attacked?
you say that you feel that you... Am I going back from the past? Anyway, let me just... Would you feel that you are totally in, when you're experiencing something in your emotional body, would you feel that you are there with it, or do you think you're detached from it, watching yourself go through the experience?
I'm going to come down to it because I could feel the pain. I definitely feel it. But then I would quickly
Make it
think of why do I feel this way.
Rationalize it.
Yeah. and-
Why is 8th house?
Yeah.
Why is 8th house? Why is 8th house? She feels the pain, and at this moment, Mercury kicks in. Why do I feel the pain? Now I need to rectify. Now I'm away from the pain.
Yeah,
That's a survival instinct.
and then also immediately I would look for the positive solution.
Yes, that's the beauty in this here. No doubt. Survival instinct. We're dealing with a south node in the second house. The question becomes why? Or the other dynamic, so there must have been a causative reason that set apart within her in an emotional state of shock.
That Mars is square Saturn.
That's everywhere in this chart. That's Pluto conjunct Uranus in the first house. Pluto, the ruler of the fourth house. That's an emphasis of 3 planets in Cancer in the 11th house, where one is not only T-squaring the nodes, but making a wide conjunction with the ruler of the activated node in the 8th house in Aries. Well, how does 8th house Aries feel with a Mars in Cancer in the 11th house? Yes? Highly? Pardon me?
I would say cut off.
Cut off?
Mars from it in the 11th.
The Cancer, though, wouldn't make it as cut off.
Does everyone in this room have a moon in Aquarius or 11th house, or moon conjunct Uranus, or had recently a Uranus transit over the moon, or squaring moon? Yeah? Okay. Does that give you a feeling of coziness and security? Or is it more the feeling, when does the next horror happen? From an emotional point of view. It's the constant feeling of an emotional alert. You cannot relax. Uranus needs to detach in order to liberate from everything which has come before in order to move on. Is that the archetype? Yeah? So your statement with this moon and or with this Cancer thing, no, it's not cozy. Not at all.
Did she survive the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Japan, right? Excuse me. I just saw the Neptune, Uranus, and then this Virgo first house. Maybe she survived something like that.
Something like that. Something like that.
And the survival part I meant because of the Virgo.
Mm-hmm. But the trauma is very similar. The trauma is very similar.
Could that be because of the Pluto-Uranus conjunction?
Could be what?
What she was saying about the bombing.
Yeah, but it's not the case in her case.
But it's living through some type of horror thing.
An old, unresolved, incredible trauma.
And we want to know what that trauma is.
Well, I first want to help you to understand, what caused the trauma. We have 8th house Aries. It might be something to do with sex.
Stupid sarcasm. I think he wants us to get the point.
Around it.
I mean, there's a whole theory. Just make it, we don't have to see what happened, but be able to describe the dynamics. Yeah? Make it graphic. What if she was a woman and was together with all her soul intentions and desires? Pluto in the first house with Uranus doesn't make it smoother, does it? Yeah? It is together with a man. And she has a high emphasized need for absolute freedom and independency. Yeah? To live out her inner soul desires, liberate not only herself, but also to work on a social or global level. Global, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Entrapment, she feels incredibly entrapped with Aries.
Well, the question is, how does the man react to her?
He doesn't like that.
Furious.
To say the least.
Aries in the 8th house.
Physical act of suppression.
Physical act of suppression with Saturn, suppression of abuse, of violation of trust. Yeah? Yeah.
When she acted on her instinctual desires.
Yeah. Whenever she acted on the instinctual desires, which did not fit in the typical image of a gender orientation. In Cancer, which had the consequence that overwhelming powers, 8th house, from an Aries point of view, or dickheads, yeah,
Right.
judged what's gonna happen with her life. Yeah, and very often one, and that was the smallest judgment, was to lose her property. Her property was taken away. Everything which had to do with her own survival was now taken away.
I'm sorry, I don't know what property called Venus.
Second house.
Oh, I see.
Money. Property. Yes? Makes sense? How does someone feel who needs absolute independence if someone cuts off your survival instinct? Yeah? If you love to ride your car, you know, and no gas station is selling you gas anymore. What does that do with someone who has such a high need for independency? What does it emotionally?
Fear.
What about anger? Yeah? And anger and rage. And did this anger and rage work in a conceptual way? It just lived out. She became a little light ball. Yeah? Just, yeah, lightning ball. Running through whatever was in her way. Yeah? If that would have been the case, what was then the reaction of the society, or of the others, or her husband? What was the judgment she literally experienced? Was she considered to be normal? No, with the 11th house she was probably considered to be crazy.
With the South? No.
What did then happen when she was considered crazy? They put her away. Where? To? In a mental hospital. What was done in a mental hospital with her relative to an Aries 8th house? Experimented on her. Not only, in all kind of perverted ways. Only because she was the way she was. Which had the effect in coming incarnations that whenever she had a need, she was totally hiding the need. Which makes sense, doesn't it not? But because there was still the energy within her, yeah, very often now, the other one lived her anger, her need for independency, i.e. as a, so to speak, a projected other persona. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah? That, when that happened, she very often got betrayed. Betrayed. Thanks. The other one had, like, you know, an affair after the other.
Put her in there?
Could be. I'm just like focusing on the dynamic. Very much the same thing, Belle, what you said. If a masochist does not embrace from within that he also has sadistic patterns, meaning anger, then he will attract someone from outside who will do for him. Yeah? And in order, whatever happened, in order for her in this life, in relationships, to make sure it does not happen, she stays in charge in the relationship. Make sense?
But in a way imprisons herself.
Because?
So in charge that there's no possibility for anyone to